Thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm with Apurva Luty. She's the founder and CEO of Optimly. Uh, Optimly is one of Forum's portfolio companies. Apurva joined our accelerator about a year ago or early 2026, was it?
It was September of 2025.
Okay, so almost a year. And I am the VP of marketing at Forum Ventures. And so I've had the pleasure of being an early customer slash design partner of Optimly. And I have a huge appetite for us to leverage LLMs as a discovery channel for Forum and getting in front of founders. So I'm really excited for today's conversation because I've been on this journey with Apurva pretty firsthand and seen how the product has changed. I'm really excited to dig into your founder journey from the very start of Optimly, even before it came a company, to today after raising your pre-seed round. And I'd love to start off with, if you want to introduce yourself, a little bit about what Optimly does. And then I want to go back to the start of your journey when you were still working at Discord. You've had a long career already at Microsoft and Meta, and what brought you to the decision to start a company?
Yeah. Thank you, Alexis, for having me on. Always a pleasure. So, optimally, we help brands get represented accurately in AI search or an AI model so that they can find the right customer in the right conversation, the right AI conversation at the right time. We believe that there's this massive platform shift happening as more and more people are using agents and AI in that shopping journey and the customer journey. And we want to be on the other side of that, helping brands leverage this as an opportunity to go get more high intent customers, especially as all the other channels, as we know, are becoming increasingly saturated and distribution is becoming harder. So that's what we're doing. Think of us as like matchmakers for brands and for AI agents uh, and customers. And so I started this company, let's see, about a year ago. It was really just, me vibe coding and playing around with some ideas for a long time. My background is in consumer research, product marketing, product strategy. Was in big tech for the better part of my career. Started out at Microsoft, um, then went to Meta, at Discord, launched a bunch of 0 to 1 products. And so really understood at the time, like how you look at market demand, get market signal, figure out what are the customer problems to solve, and then go build products and launch products in new categories to go meet that demand or to solve those problems. And for me, I just became fascinated when I started seeing consumer behavior shift, a little over a year and a half ago, where, just normal people were using ChatGPT for not just looking things up online, but for truly like, you know, using it to offload their the stuff that was on their mind or to actually, do research that would be otherwise really hard to do, not going beyond just a simple search, but saying, "Hey, I am a mom of 3. I'm really busy. I really care about, not buying things that have additives in them from a food perspective. I'm trying to find like this very specific product." You'd see these people like not just again doing research, but having going back and forth with chatbots at the time. Agents weren't as big, but chatbots and trying to find what they were looking for. And I just thought that that was so fascinating, that behavior shift. It was the first time I've done shopping research, consumer behavior research for a long time. And it was the first time where I felt like, okay, this is a step change. And I want to be on the other side of it, understanding the behavior and helping brands find more customers through this new medium. And so that's how I started Optimally. It was again just this like thing I was fascinated by and I started learning about and then eventually, landed our first customer, paying customer, which was exciting before we even had a product. Which forum will tell you is like exactly the way to do it. And then met Kevin on the forum team and decided, okay, it's now or never. And that's kind of how I decided to make the leap. I landed my first customer and I met forum and kind of use that as the I guess for me, it was a sign of, okay, this is my opportunity to go try something different, something new that I haven't done before in my career.
So tell me about that moment, around that moment in time, and you met Forum. Were you actively looking for investment from a VC, or did you like was that more accidental?
Yeah, not particularly. I didn't know anything about fundraising. I knew that I would have to build a product eventually, but I also just was like really loving trying, using vibe coding tools and learning how to build not the product, but like parts of a workflow that would help me deliver value to my then first paying customer. And so I wasn't really actively looking for a co-founder. I wasn't actively looking for an investor. I was just trying to figure out like, hey, is there a business here? And then if there is a business, is there like an opportunity to build product for it? Or is it just a services business? And, it's truly opportunistic. I think what I loved talking to form about was this idea that this could be a really great business with no technology or platform or product, right? And the thing that sold me talking to Kevin was like, hey, we'll help you figure that out. But either way, you'll leave the accelerator with like an understanding of how to build a successful business, whether it's venture backed or not. And so that was kind of my mindset going in is I truly wanted to build my own business. I didn't know at the time it was going to be venture backed or if even I would have like a true product. But I knew that I wanted to build my own business and I was ready to strike out on my own.
And is being, building your own business something that was always something you thought would happen in your career one day, or was it more recent?
I don't think if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have ever told you that being an entrepreneur was in the cards for me. Like I was one of the kids that like grew up thinking that she was going to be either a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. And like I went to school, did pre-med, like I ended up like changing majors and doing a lot of other things. But I don't think like I ever really seriously considered being an entrepreneur as something that was, I could do or would be available to me. But looking back at my career now and thinking about the roles I had taken on, even while in big tech, I was always kind of in these like 0 to 1 ambiguous roles. One of my managers jokingly, half jokingly, called me like a one woman SWAT team. Like there'd be a problem to solve, nobody knew what to do. And like it was just this very ambiguous thing. And they'd be like, send in Apurva, she'll figure it out. And so I think I've always liked working in 0 to 1 spaces. The thing that was new for me was, AI giving me the tools to just type into a box, like prompt something and like have it build a tool that I could actually use. I'm not like I'm technical enough. Like I have a background in data, and so I know how to write R scripts and like, do analysis with large data sets. But other than like some HTML pages that I built when I was a teenager, I knew nothing about like truly building product, from the ground up until my best friend Claude Code came along.
Right. I love it. So, can we talk about the category as it stands today? What are you most excited about around LLM and brands leveraging LLMs to, you know, be part of the customer conversation? What about the category gets you the most excited? Like, what is your vision of it over the next? I don't. I'm even like nervous to say year because it's changing so
Yeah.
fast. But what's your current vision for it?
Yeah, my vision. This is so hard. This is something I struggle with on a daily basis to articulate. I think it's like somewhere living deep in my head, and I just need help extracting it. And every day, I think it like gets a little bit sharper. So, we'll try something on for size here, and we'll see how it lands. But I'll put it this way: it feels like today, brands and marketers are exhausted. I get it. Like I'm been a marketer. I know we talk about this all the time. It's like there's more surfaces, there's more things to do, more things to test, and increasingly it feels like you're not getting very much in return. And the stuff that does work feels just totally random. And all the channels feel tapped out. And it's an incredibly frustrating feeling. It is also an exciting feeling because it feels like then we are on the cusp of some step change. I am not like, old enough to like be part of the like marketing ecosystem back in the early 90s, but that's what it feels like. It feels
Mhm.
like this new technology has come along. It's not just a new technology, but it is a new medium. And it's going to fundamentally change the way that we do marketing, how brands think about reaching customers, everything. And that's what's like most exciting to me. So for me, the vision is like help marketers like figure out how to navigate this change and help like the smaller, medium-sized brands, maybe SMBs, right? I think about my ICP, it's the solo marketer, it's the founder, it's the person that truly just does not have enough time or expertise, but now is the time for you to figure out how to break out on this new channel. It's like in 1992, it wasn't the Coca-Cola or, the Pepsi, those brands that were thinking about building websites. I mean, maybe they were, but it was like one thing on a list of 1,000 things that those marketing teams had to do. But if you were just this like enterprising individual or business owner and you were trying to figure out how to break out in the next big thing, it was a great time for you. And so for me, that's what I get excited about. I think we're going to have like a shift in terms of which brands are really going to start to uh, take advantage of this new medium and find distribution in ways that are going to sound completely crazy to someone in 2022. So I don't know if that's like a good vision statement, but that's what I get excited about.
Where would you tell a marketer who feels lost and overwhelmed and hasn't started to tackle or think about AO yet? How AEO or GEO or whatever you might be calling this? Like, what would your first sort of conversation look like with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm doing this a lot now, right? And a lot of people are like, where do I start? And I think people's tendency or what they want to hear from me is like, tell me the tactic, tell me the exact thing I need to do. And I usually turn the question back over to them and I say, what's the story you want to tell? Who's your dream customer? Um, and it, and this is where it all comes back to brand. Like you kind of really have to know who you are, what you're trying to do, and then it's about engineering the mechanisms, which is AI answer optimization or geo engineering the mechanisms by which to get that message out there through this new medium. Now that part's the messy middle, and that's the other thing I think people have a hard time kind of wrapping their heads around is you're gonna have to kiss a lot of frogs, repeat your prints. Like you're going to be testing and learning, and you're going to be, having to kind of move fast and iterate. But that's exactly how it's been on every other medium. When there was a big platform shift like this. I think back to 2005. Facebook newsfeed had just come out, and people were trying to figure out, well, how do I like get in front of people on this new platform? There was no playbook. You just kind of had to test and learn. And eventually it became a science. It became known as, A/B testing, you know, a concept from data science. But initially there was no playbook. The brands that succeeded on that medium, on any of these new mediums that have come up over the last 20, 25 years, have been the ones that have understood at the end of the day, like what they were trying to build a business around, who their ideal customer was, what story they wanted to tell. And then it was just a matter of like test and learn, iterate quickly. And then just, that feedback loop is ultimately what gets you moving faster. Now, I do think that there is obviously a need for better tooling that can help marketers and brands apply this approach more rigorously, faster, and also in a way that's not so time consuming, which is why I'm building Optimally, because I do think that while, yes, this could have been a successful services business, what I ultimately want to do is like, I want to teach marketers to fish. I don't want to fish for them. And for me, it's all about figuring out what is the right set of tools and data that you need to go do this type of process repeatedly and figure out what's going to work for your particular brand based on your business and who you're trying to reach through this new medium that's AI.
Great. Back to your founder journey. Can you tell me about one of your most exciting moments in the last 12 months?
Yeah. So I think for me, the inflection point for us, or the most exciting moment for us, was when we observed some AI behavior on our own website because we had just launched and we were trying to apply a lot of these same methods for our own distribution via AI. And we didn't really know what it was, and it kind of like tried to talk to other folks and try to understand like, hey, why are we getting so much AI traffic? What do we do about this? It's also to pages that we don't have. I remember looking at that data and thinking this must be a mistake, and then nobody had any answers. And so it's like, well, I could just ignore it, or I could go down this rabbit hole and try to figure out what's going on. And the result of that was what we eventually launched as the AI Brand Index. Think of this as a Nielsen panel for observing and measuring AI retrieval behavior around brand entities and brand data specifically. This was an exciting moment for us because it finally felt like we had hit some sort of inflection point of understanding the behavior that our own customers were asking us about, right? Of what are people talking to ChatGPT about? Like, how do these things even work? No one had any answers. In
Mhm.
theory, the frontier labs know, but they're not sharing that information. And nobody else was kind of figuring this out either. And looking back, it was like such a such an interesting insight, but it truly, I mean, I use the Nielsen analogy all the time now. Like back in the 50s, when people first started buying TVs and they were like setting them up and no one knew like what shows were people watching. Like the networks maybe knew, but there was this opportunity for someone to come in and say, "Hey, this is a behavior that we're all trying to learn from because we all want to yeah, understand how this channel works, how this medium works." And they Nielsen built that instrumentation. At first, it was just surveys, but once you start to build that measurement out, then you start to give brands and marketers more tools to be able to make more informed decisions. The problem is like nobody's sharing the data that would actually help people make informed decisions about their marketing right now, and so I think for us realizing, hey, that was the gap, and actually we have a way of filling that gap was really, really exciting, and it was a way that we could like build value for the ecosystem and for brands and marketers, without really like trying to oversell them on anything, right? We're all in this, we're learning this together, but I think you got to start somewhere, and so that was an exciting moment for us.
Very cool. I would love for you to walk me through your most recent fundraise and what that journey looked like, where it was potentially challenging. Love to know how the forum team helped you and where you ended up because I know it's somewhere really exciting and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yes, fundraising. So many thoughts, mixed emotions on this. So first of all, very just truly hands down, it was an incredible experience going through fundraising with Forum and having you guys kind of help us jumpstart that process coming out of the accelerator. Like I said, I don't think I would have done it on my own because I don't have background and context experience in this space, right? And so I think not knowing it was an option would have made me think that it's not something I could do. But going through the accelerator and also kind of weighing both sides of that equation of like, yes, you could fundraise, but also like let's help you, think about other sources of funding if you need it to keep the business going. Things like grants, like friends and family. I think I really appreciated very grounded approach to fundraising. It was not like, "Hey, we're gonna put you in the showcase and then you have to raise all this money. It has to happen in a certain amount of time." It really came down to what's the business you're building? What signal do you have? And, this is another way to get some learning, but also let's make sure that you're in good shape. Like you're gonna be able to sustain this company one way or another. And it might
Mhm.
take you a couple of times and there I think Kevin in particular, my MD, did an excellent job of setting expectations. So I knew more or less exactly what I was going into. And, of course, you guys did a lot of other prep and made a lot of introductions and opened a lot of doors. But more so than anything else, I think we're in an environment right now around fundraising and venture backed like startups and what they're trying to do. It's like there's a lot of noise and it's really hard to separate the signal out from the noise. You have some people that are just raising incredible amounts of money just on team alone, no product. And then you have others with like really, really successful businesses, maybe like million or two in ARR that are still struggling to raise a seed. And so it's kind of a very dynamic, hard to read market, especially if you're a first time founder and you're a new founder. And I really just appreciated Kevin and Jonah helping us think through like, is this even the right path for us? Making sure that it was the right path for us. And even if it didn't work out, like how we could sustain the business long term.
Mhm.
So in terms of like, yeah, fundraise and forums role in that was probably the thing that helped us the most.
So where did you end up?
Yeah. So where we ended up. Okay. So we landed our first check in March on the back of like the pitch that we had initially gone into fundraising with, which and also happened to just coincide with this thing that I mentioned around the brand index, which didn't change our vision, but it certainly like made us slow down a little bit because on the fundraising side, because we're like, well, what's going on? Have we built a panel for AI agents and their behavior? What does that mean? How does that connect back to our core business of helping brands? So I think some of the slowdown was like intentional on our part because we were trying to figure out like, okay, what are we even building anymore? Like, does this change like our projections and what we need to fundraise? And I'm glad that we slowed down because I think we went into fundraising with a certain set of assumptions and an ask, and then the brand index and the traction on the brand index kind of altered those assumptions. So we had to kind of revise our financial model and thinking around what we actually needed to do. And so I would say like around March, April, we were having conversations, but we kind of slowed down and then picked back up in May. We were invited to pitch at an investor conference here in Washington. I'm based out of Seattle and went there. And it was the first time we were really kind of sharing this new story around the brand index. And it was wildly successful. So we won all three of the awards at that pitch competition, including an investment from the angel network there. And then that led to kind of increase in interest from the investors we had been speaking to. And then finally went with AI House. They're an incubator that's based here in Seattle and wanted, some more like local investors because we really want to build this company in Seattle. And also wanted to work with some of the frankly sharpest minds in AI research right now to help us understand this panel that we're building and how we can leverage this understanding of AI model retrieval behavior to really help brands. So they came in, closed out our round. We also joined the incubator, so now have like a place to work. We brought on our first hire, a data engineering intern, just at I think the same day that we like signed the term sheet for AI House. And so, yeah, it's been a very exciting and fast moving last 4 or 5 weeks. But yeah, it was one of those things like I knew it was going to take a long time, and it ended like there's a happy ending, but I'm probably glossing over some of the more painful parts of the fundraise. Like, it took us 80 first conversations to land that first check back in March, and so like it's fundraising is tough, and there were definitely times when I think I went to Kevin multiple times and was like, "I don't wanna do this anymore." And he was like, "Keep at it. It's getting you like, it's a numbers game. You'll get there." And he was like, "It's gonna take you somewhere between 80 to 100 first conversations." And he was right. Mm, and, some of it you can't predict. Like, this is a fast moving market. Like, if something happens during the fundraise with your customers or you get traction, you kind of do have to take a look at that, right? Yeah. It's because at the end of the day, you're building a business. You're not just like trying to raise a bunch of money and not do anything with it. So I think some of it we couldn't have predicted, but I'm really glad that it happened the way it did, and even though it took a while.
Amazing. Tell me about the roles you're hiring for and what's next for Optimally.
Yes, we're going to focus on getting a founding engineer first and foremost, someone who has a lot of experience building backend systems, like scaling them. At the end of the day, we are a data infrastructure company. Like we're collecting a lot of data. This data is what is enabling us to build a product and user experiences for brands to help them optimize for AI search, but the data is really our differentiator. And so the founding engineer we're looking for ideally has experience building those types of systems and scaling them, and they're ideally located in Seattle, since we'd love to build the team out here.
Great. And other than hiring, what's top of mind? What's next right now for you?
Uh, every day is I feel like is just it's exciting. Like, so much is happening between, like, new model releases, and every time there's a model release, I get really excited because it means that we can do work faster, but then it's also, like, a new population of, agents and their behavior to monitor and observe. So, yeah, it's kind of it's wild. Like, on one hand, like, we are a customer of these models because we're using them in our workflows, and it's frankly, like, helping us operate as a company way faster and better than we would have been able to do 4 or 5 years ago. On the other hand, they're also like the subject of the work we're doing and the data we're collecting. And so that sometimes feels wild to me.
Absolutely. Amazing stuff. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me and sharing some of your story. It's been awesome.